Welcome to Media Moses Weekly, the weekly roundup of articles from our own Media Moses and from the relevant entertainment news. Topics this week include what we did this week and Founders Film seeks funding. We'll also have a main topic at cultural warfare, which we'll get to in a second. But for now, what media experiences have you had, Rebecca?
Hi, John. I just started reading this book called The Prince Warriors and the Unseen Invasion.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and this is book two. I think it's a series of books called The Prince Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by Priscilla Shire. It says New York Times best-selling
Mm-hmm.
author. So that's pretty neat. I'm pretty excited about it. So it's a Christian young adult fiction, science
Mm-hmm.
fiction. I would say maybe dystopian fiction. I just got started on it. But
Dystopian fantasy.
yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so and it's got a poster in the back.
Ooh,
Like you
gotta
can pull
love
it out.
posters and maps.
Yeah. So I'm kind of excited about it. I was reading it and it's like I don't know, like every Christian who's ever read about the armor of God and
Oh,
said,
yeah.
hey, wouldn't this be a cool concept for a book or a movie, like characters who wear the armor of God? It kind of sounds like someone just took that and ran with it, but it's really like it's fun, but it's like also very like serious. And they have this character who speaks to them and tells them what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
his name is Ruah, which sounds just like
Yeah.
Ruach HaKodesh, which I believe is the word for Holy Spirit in
Mhm.
Hebrew. So that's kind of neat. I really like that. Um, and the characters have, some of them have all the armor, some of them only have pieces of
Mhm.
it. And then they go into this fortress where they rescue other children with a key, like a special key that
Mm.
unlocks doors. So there's lots of really cool language like that in there.
Cool.
Um,
Cool.
one one character even said something like, "Once freed, always freed."
Mm.
And so lots of really cool language that points to scripture, that points to Jesus. So I'm excited about it. This is book two, and there's three that I know of, and there's a devotional. So I think that's kind of neat. And I took a peek at the devotional, and it sounds a lot like the book. It's talking a lot about, like standing strong in the Lord and stuff like that, but it has scripture as well. So yeah,
Sweet.
yeah,
That's great. That's exciting.
yeah, I'm enjoying it.
So these are some books, right? Isn't this group a group of some books that we got from a local Christian bookstore?
Yeah.
Are they considering selling their store or what?
Um, yeah, sort of. Yeah, they were sort of considering selling their store. They're kind of, as far as I know, they were just running it by the grace of God, almost like a
Yeah.
ministry. But we
Yeah.
visited them, and we just wanted to connect with some people who were running a bookstore and just ask them lots of questions about it. They were really
Mm-hmm.
nice, really helpful, and they happened to have just a few books in this genre. They had a couple
Yeah.
Ted Decker books that are called, I think it's Voyage or Impossible Journey to Impossible Places.
Right.
They had a couple of those, and then they had just this one out of the series.
And we could only get the what, second and third of the series, not the first, something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the second, right, of that trilogy.
yes, yeah. So we bought two second books, but I know I
Sometimes
would,
you get what you get, right?
yeah. And I remember when I was a kid, I would go to used bookstores and pick up a book, and even if it was like somewhere in the middle of the series, it usually didn't matter. Like you could usually follow along and figure
I
out what
did
was
that
going.
with I did that with Robert Jordan. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's the Wheel of Time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hot
Yeah. So
fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of high fantasy and stuff like that, I've been doing a lot of research on books and book selling and a lot of this stuff, publishing, and there's just so many great trends out there. And of course, this will inform us on our main topic on cultural warfare, which is the Realm Makers Conference this year, which is the first time they're actually putting on an expo as well, which means it's basically for the fans also. It was just for writers conference, and now it's also for the fans. So I decided to come. That also means it's considerably cheaper for the fans to come because the writers have to spend hundreds of dollars to talk about, how to do good writing and things like this and the trends in Christian fiction. And so that's really exciting to me. Because I mean, as it comes to culture building, you can't just be into the old classic stuff. You also have to be into the new stuff and what society is writing about now and reading about now. But also, you can't just be into the new stuff, right? You have to be into the old stuff. So, you can't forget your roots, where you came from. Otherwise, you're not going to realize that you're just following in the footsteps of some writer from 200 years ago, and you have done nothing new, right?
Mhm.
So, but and actually also some of those older writers are incredibly good, like they're shockingly good. So if you really want to do a good job and advance the art form, you got to try to somehow match their quality or even exceed it somehow. But this is not an easy task. But yeah, I got to see some great writers there at the conference, and we'll talk about that at the main topic. But so that's exciting. We got some Ted Decker books, like you said. And
Yeah.
what was this author's name again for this book?
Priscilla Shire.
Shire or Shirer?
Yeah.
Yeah, Shearer. It could be Shearer. But I met a lot of, yeah, I met a lot of great authors. And this Priscilla, I'd love to interview her as well. But, to get into the future of Christian fiction, you really got to start with something like books, because this is still a very vibrant industry for the faith-based community. And this is often going to be where you get your next good movies that are coming down the pike that are breaking the mold for Christian or faith-based genre films. That's what you want. You want to continue to break the mold, because this mold is actually very restrictive. So I think that in order to find some wiggle room in there to get some creativity going, you gotta be in that world, figuring out what's the next stuff coming down the pike. And there's some exciting stuff coming down the pike. So yeah. Well, we did order the first one of that series, don't we? Like on
Yes.
Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
And the first one of the Ted Decker series. That'd be good.
Yeah. But it seems like Ted Decker always sells his kids' books in bundles now. So
That's
it,
right.
it's always a bundle. So it's kind of hard to find book one.
You could probably find it on Amazon. I mean, maybe. He might have made it very hard to get it without.
Bundles only.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Well, maybe on eBay, if not on Amazon.
Hmm.
Yeah. One of my stories this week, because my media experiences were vast, and I will be discussing at Cultural Warfare coming up. One of my articles this week, actually, it's not a Media Moses article, but it's a Semaphore article. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them correctly, but um, it's about a production company called Founders Films. And so Founders Films aims to remake Hollywood with patriotism, Palantir, and Ayn Rand. So this is from a few days ago. Monumental American Stories. Some of these pictures in this article are literally from their pitch deck. So it's funny that they're putting these pictures up here and it says on the lower right-hand corner, strictly confidential.
Oh,
It's like, did you
Can you
guys?
remind me what a pitch deck is?
A pitch deck is basically materials, marketing materials meant to raise funding for a project.
Okay.
So, kind of like a business proposal,
Okay.
or a portfolio, except it's not random. It's project based and very carefully put together to elicit a response from investors. So that's kind of what they're for. I put together a few of these, but what I focused on was top sheets. A top sheet is basically, well, not actually, no, I shouldn't say top sheets. That's for when you have a budget. But I focused on kind of the flyer ones. There's a few names for them, but it's kind of a flyer and it gives the basic idea of the story and just a front and a back and contact information. I liked to do that because what I want to do is give them something quick that I can hand out instead of having a folder that I have to open and be like, here's the next page of my folder, which a lot of filmmakers will do that. They'll just hand out all these folders and give out all these folders. I just didn't have the money for that. So I would have these kind of brochures that use thick paper and cardstock paper. And what you do is you have a basic, synopsis on one side, and the other side is a more advertising with a nice picture and gives the basic idea of the film. And then I'd hand that out and then just talk about the film, give them more information than they can find on this flyer. So I often don't like to give out too much information. And I tend to feel like if I haven't sold them in 5 minutes talking about this flyer, then I will not sell them. So, and also I can hand out multiple flyers that way too, because if you hand out a pitch deck and you haven't sold someone, now they have this big thing in their hand. And then if you want to move on to another picture, you can't because they have this big thing in their hand. So, but if you hand out 2 flyers, it's not a big deal, or 3 flyers. So,
Mm.
so there's a lot of reasons why I would do that. I did that at AFM, by the way. Well, I have my AFM bag here, and I will talk about why I have this here. I brought it to Realm Makers, and so that's where I put all my stuff because that's a great bag for conferences. That's where I put all my stuff for Realm Makers in there. We'll talk about that in a second. But back to this article. Goodness
Yes.
gracious. Yeah, so this is their pitch deck, Founders Films. The scoop, it says, as a conservative political backlash sweeps across US media, I don't know if it's sweeping, some are reaching for the ultimate prize, Hollywood. Well, you can reach, but good luck. Um, Shifting the liberal tilt of the studios and creative culture that shapes America's image of itself has long been a goal for the right, which it fails at miserably. Sorry, I keep putting my 2 cents in, excuse me. The late media entrepreneur Andrew Breitbart popularized the notion that politics is downstream from culture, and acolytes from Steve Bannon to Ben Shapiro have sought to inject their politics into the movie business with limited success. I have to insert myself here once again because it's just so sad that people don't even understand the statement. They keep using this statement without even understanding what it means. And the truth is, even Steve Bannon and Ben Shapiro have apparently misunderstood what it means.
Mm.
Here's what it says. Politics is downstream from culture. Downstream. That means you have to focus on culture, not politics.
Yeah.
And what does everyone focus on? Politics. Are you guys brain dead? The point of the thing is that culture is greater than politics and more important. Why is everybody brain dead? Why are we focusing on politics? And then it says pundits like Steve Bannon, well, they say acolytes, which of course we have so many cultural acolytes. No, they're political acolytes. Acolytes from Steve Bannon to Ben Shapiro have sought to inject their politics into the movie business with limited success. Yeah, because they're injecting politics into it. They don't even understand Andrew Breitbart, the guy that they're like, oh, he's so great, he's so wonderful. Let's totally flip what he said. Wow, I mean, goodness gracious, how pathetic. And no wonder we have had no success. This very simple point has been misunderstood over and over and over again. Politics, 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 politics. Can you guys take a break? It's about culture. And if you don't get that one point, you're not going to get to the next point, which is what is culture and what should we then be doing about it? I keep telling people over and over, it's about culture, not politics. That's the point, is that it's not about politics. It's about culture, which is upstream from politics. That is, it influences politics and it influences it more effectively than you can by focusing on politics. So if you want to change your politics, change the culture. Don't change the politics. You see the very simple point that's being made? Because one comes from the other, right? So that means you have to focus on the one to affect the other. If you want to affect downstream, right, where people don't have a choice, you affect the culture. You see what I'm saying? And the fact that Daily Wire, I've made this point about Daily Wire many times, but the fact that Daily Wire can't just focus on culture means they don't understand it. They don't understand Andrew Breitbart's point, and Steve Bannon as well. They just focus on politics. That's why they have political shows. So, and then the writer here is also misunderstanding it. You know, these are not then acolytes of Andrew Breitbart, are they? They say they are, but they actually get the point backwards. So they're not very good acolytes if they are acolytes. So this does bother me because it's such a simple point that's so elegantly put. And the dude dies and he's this hero, and then nobody gets his point. Nobody gets it. I mean, it's no wonder we're having no influence in Hollywood. You can't get one simple point. Goodness. Okay. Sorry about that. Little there. Sidebar. Okay. So back to the article here. But conservatives have celebrated a few mainstream hits, like the patriotic Top Gun Maverick and Taylor Sheridan's nostalgic libertarian-inflected Yellowstone. And a long-standing Christian culture industry has backed projects like the 2023 film Sound of Freedom, a dramatization of child trafficking that grossed more than $242 million for Provo's Angel Studios. The Christian drama The Forge earned $30 million on a $6 million budget last year. Okay, so I am glad that they equate Christian culture with conservative culture. People have long tried to separate the two, and you really can't separate them. They are inseparable. Conservative culture really is Christian culture, right? Because what are we trying to conserve? But values that we had at the founding of our country, which was Christian values. There's just no way around that. They are inseparable. Conservative values are traditional Christian, especially Protestant American values. That's what they are. So I'm glad that they get it. Although the funny thing here is, um, not only is Angel Studios not a Christian studio, but um, uh, Top Gun, who was Tom Cruise, he's a Scientologist. so so what do we have here? Well, at least we have something that resembles conservative values, right? And at least resembles it from, let's say, the 80s in Top Gun, or Yellowstone, kind of a pastiche of what they think it was like back in the day. Um, or Sound of Freedom, which I would say is probably the most Christian of these projects, even more Christian than The Forge, which is more of a feminist project about telling men how to be men. Sound of Freedom is about defending human rights and children's rights, and that's a very Christian thing to do. Why do you think we have a constitution? Right? Because Christians care about human rights and values. So we want to stop things like abortion, human trafficking, etc. Right? So anything that makes a real stand to do that is good from a Christian perspective. So yes, that you could say longstanding Christian culture industry has backed projects like Sound of Freedom, a dramatization of child trafficking that grossed more than 242 million. Why do you think it grossed that much? Because it would actually be good if we did these kinds of projects more, because people want to see more of those projects, right? So that is what we're dealing with. And these films prove that there is a market for this content, but so many people don't get it. The least probably, um, The Forge bears the least resemblance here to anything conservative or Christian. Um, like I said, it was a feminist film, which is more of like what faith-based film has been for the last 20 years, which is not really Christian. Sorry if that offends some people, but it's not really Christian. It's more about church culture and telling men who's in charge in the church, which is the women in the church. So I don't agree with that. Back to the story. Don't worry, I'll just interrupt this article every 2 minutes and give you commentary. Now, again, this is about, just to keep us on track here, the Founders Films aims to remake Hollywood with patriotism, Palantir and Ayn Rand. So they are a production company that seeks funding. And this is their rationale is about to come up for why they seek funding. Now, a set of prominent figures close to the software firm Palantir are pitching a new project to shake up streaming TV and film with a portfolio ranging from feature films about daring Israeli and American military operations to a three-part treatment of an Ayn Rand tome. In a pitch deck circulated to investors in recent months, Palantir Chief Technology Officer Shyam Sankar, I think that's how you pronounce his name, early Palantir employee Ryan Podolsky, and investor Christian Garrett are raising money for Founders Films, a new production company based in Dallas that aims to push for films with a nationalistic bent and unsubtle political overtones. The company said its projects would adhere to a set of rules, say yes to projects about American exceptionalism, name America's enemies, back artists unconditionally, take risk on novel IP. The American brand is broken, they say. Hollywood is AWOL. Movies have become more ideological, more cautious, and less entertaining. Large segments of American and international viewers are underserved. Production costs have soared and sales are flagging. Founders aims to be a production studio that would also co-finance projects, distribute films, and engage in brand partnerships. Often production companies have to engage in those things project's name echoes that of Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, and both Palantir and Garrett have close ties to the investor, a key figure on the new right. A spokesman for Thiel didn't respond to a request for comment on the project. But in a post late last year on his Substack, Sankar outlined his view for a return to blockbusters of the 80s and 90s, like Red Dawn, Top Gun, Rocky IV, and The Hunt for October. I think he's right about that. He said the entertainment needed to be unafraid of offending Chinese audiences. Need to be unafraid of offending American audiences.
Mhm.
And use American cultural power to spread skeptical views of the Chinese government. Breaking out of our cultural malaise will require the studios to wake up and choose America, he wrote, invoking the Renaissance in American film in the 1970s, when directors including Spielberg brought back heroes, villains, and romance and rekindled the flame of the American cinematic universe. Yeah, he calls it the American cinematic universe, which I think is a charming way to put it. While Founders Deck largely avoids political language, I wouldn't say that's true. The company's proposed projects celebrate American military action, push for confrontation with China, and elevate heroes of the right from Rand to Elon Musk. The slate includes 102 minutes. I mean, how long can this pitch deck be, right? Can't say it. Too many things. The slate includes 102 minutes of feature film about the evacuation of the World Trade Center on 9/11. Courage is contagious, the tagline reads. True. The company also hopes to create a 3-part adaptation of Atlas Shrugged and a film about Qasem Soleimani. Anyway, it goes on here to talk about political projects that they claim they don't want to be too political, but almost every project looks political, like military operations. Some people, some conservatives or Republicans might say, well, this is just pro-American. Yes, I understand that. But it's also very clearly represents a clear political side. And so artists have to be a little smarter than this, right? It's not about propaganda. It's about telling good stories for artists. So this looks like, where Hollywood has many, many left-wing propaganda pieces, this looks like, one of the few conservative production companies, but it's also a conservative propaganda company. So on the faith-based side, there's good faith-based content, which is honest, authentic, not a political agenda. And then there's bad faith-based content, which is inauthentic, political, and not culturally helpful or healthy. And those are the things that are like feminist. They're a little bit egalitarian. All of those things represent Marxist values. And that's what we see so often now in faith-based film, is this kind of message, which really is propagandistic, right? And a lot of the reason they do that is because they get paid to do that. And this is the conservative version of that, right? It is propagandistic because it's very simple, the message they're trying to say. You must support America unequivocally. You cannot have a nuanced political message, right? It's very, very rah-rah America. And the problem is that's not storytelling. If there is a rah-rah hero or villain, there has to be the opposing side in a good story. And those sides have to fight it out. That's how good stories work. There's more nuance and reality. It's authentic because that's real life, right? This is not Starship Troopers, right? So in real life, people have a lot of nuance questions about things. So this is the conservative version of propaganda. Very rah-rah. It's very, you know, we are serving our overlords, right? And this is what they believe they will get more money doing, which is why they've probably formed their pitch deck this way, because they believe that there are financial interests behind this rah-rah attitude, right? And you know me, you know I am extremely pro-American. But what I'm pro-American about is values, right? Not political efforts, right? I'm not trying to make money doing this. I'm about values, which is authentic belief systems, right? So my belief is authentically American. It's not about the momentary opportunism of making a buck by lobbying in DC, right? This is kind of like lobbying in Hollywood, right? There's lobbying in DC, lobbying in Hollywood. They're actually not much different, right? You play this game, and the game is rah rah our side, and thanks for the money. That's how that works. There's not much nuance there. There's not room for nuance. And with the left's ideology, they couch their belief in their nuance, right? Which just means that they also have an ideology, but because they're also good storytellers, they can couch their ideology within a nuanced story. And we just, for some reason, we don't understand. It's kind of like what I was talking about before with Andrew Breitbart, right? Culture is upstream from politics, and the left understands that, and the right doesn't understand that. So because they understand that culture is upstream, they understand to focus on the culture, on the storytelling. And then downstream will come messaging that is trapped in that amber, right? And so they see the beautiful amber, oop, they get the message, right? You got to trap it in the culture and in the story. If you don't do that, they're not going to want that. Yuck, that's propaganda. It's clearly propaganda. So we're just not, it's like we're just not understanding these very simple things. No, you focus on the culture. And conservatives, what they should be doing is hiring good storytellers to do this instead of hiring like people that act like lobbyists in DC or Hollywood. We don't need a bunch of lobbyists in Hollywood. So I know the left does it too. They're just better at it. But if we dispensed with it entirely, it would be even better, frankly. You'd get a lot better storytelling in Hollywood. Okay, so they are just summing up this pitch deck here in the article. Max's view, I guess he's the writer. The Founders Film Group's analysis of the long leftward shift from Hollywood's early days is hard to dispute, though they also risk joining a long line of ideologically motivated cultural projects whose didactic output flops in theaters. If it isn't effing entertaining, I'm out. One former studio chief told me. You can hear that all over Hollywood because it's true. It's got to be entertaining. Propaganda is just not entertaining. But changes in viewership habits and advances in technology have given this generation of right-leaning entertainers an opportunity to break through. I don't know if that's true. Because are they entertainers even? How do you know they're entertainers? They sound like lobbyists. Streaming has allowed niche filmmakers to find much easier distribution online and connect with audiences on YouTube or connected TVs. The sharp drop in attendance at movie theaters has made theatrical releases a shakier business. and opened up possibilities for niche filmmakers to distribute their films, particularly if they can offer audiences the type of action and adventure that traditionally has filled theaters. Sure. Theaters have always been shaky and risky, and that's why you do look for models that are successful. So why aren't these conservative filmmakers then going to what Hollywood successfully buys tickets to? Things like Rocky, right? Was he a nuanced character? Yeah, he was. How about his Stallone's other one, Rambo? Was he nuanced? Yeah, he was a nuanced character. He wasn't just rah rah. No, literally, he was fighting sometimes American military who were taking advantage of him. This is a nuanced character. This is not clearly left or right wing, right? Because what matters in good storytelling is the truth, not politics. And all this inauthenticity is just overwhelming. And the right hasn't learned from this when the left is starting to be inauthentic for the last 10 years or so is silly. Like the right should have learned that this is the worst. This is the reason that they have room to come in the door because the left is dropping the ball on and with their inauthentic propagandistic content. So we should provide the same thing? Of course not. It's absurd. Make better stories. Make better filmmaking. That's the thing that Hollywood's failing at. So back to the article. And at least members of the old generation of Hollywood leadership seem more like the upstarts. David Ellison has telegraphed to Trump and the world that he is willing to take Paramount and its television network CBS in a different direction when and if his company Skydance completes its acquisition of the Hollywood studio, which I believe is happening right now. I'm not sure if it completed today yet. His father, Larry Ellison, is one of Trump's biggest backers. As the merger awaits approval from the FCC, Paramount has settled a weak lawsuit filed against CBS News by Trump. The company recently announced that it is ending the Late Show. I mean, do we really think lawsuits and politics are going to make Skydance or Paramount make better content? Do you think that's how art gets made? Lawsuits, good art. Well, if Trump might win a lawsuit. That means good art might happen. My goodness, no, of course not. That's not going to make their artwork better. That's absurd. They might change the political tone of it if that's what is the most important aspect to Hollywood's art is the politics. If that's what you think, good luck with that. And yes, the company recently announced it is ending the Late Show hosted by Stephen Colbert, outspoken Trump critic. I think a lot of America right now is really happy that has been a reaction, a visceral reaction to so much late night comedy being political. And so it has chosen to nix people like Stephen Colbert. Thank God. They got boring, literally boring. It's the one rule in Hollywood you don't want to do is become boring. And this is what we want to do is make more propaganda like Colbert. Oh, goodness. Artificial intelligence seems poised to transform Hollywood. Oh no. Allowing studios to make movies and TV with fewer people. Oh, and for much cheaper. Independent filmmakers, including those with political agendas. Really? Independent filmmakers have political agendas? Oh, shocking. Can put together films without the kind of traditional financing that proved challenging for filmmakers wanting to make films with a message. Sure to turn off half the country. I mean, will it really? In its pitch to investors, founders noted that AI production and filmmaking will reduce costs for those who can wield it. Yes. Just like for those who can wield a camera and write a good story, right? So do you think that one bit of technology Using one new special bit of technology is going to make you a better storyteller? Really? You think that's how it works? If you just get a better camera, better technology, it's going to make you a better storyteller. Oh my goodness. These people don't know how things work. I think that I'm just going to guess that they're not artists. That's just what I'm going to guess. They're not really artists. They don't know how art is made. So yeah, in some of the last quotes here, I doubt that either right or left-oriented production ideology is a good business model, Barry Diller told Semaphore in an email. Bam! There you go. Good summation to this story. I doubt that either right or left-wing oriented production ideology is a good business model. Exactly. So
Mhm.
imagine all the thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars that these production execs have put together to just make another political ideology production company. Why? Instead, we should be learning what Hollywood got wrong and provide what Hollywood is not providing. That's how the market works, right? Don't just say, well, they messed up over here, so we're going to mess up in this other direction. Like our competing kitchen across the street, I heard they have rats in there. So we're not going to have rats. We're going to have roaches. That's going to be so much better. Sorry, I'm enjoying myself a little bit too much here. Uh, yeah, it sounds like politics, doesn't it? So, yeah, this is a mistake on these guys' parts. And I hope nobody that I know or nobody that I'm a fan of is part of that because that just sounds shameful that a bunch of conservative guys would get together and be like, this is what we need to make everything political. No good stories, like, no like characters we care about, no like interesting story journeys, plot journeys these guys are going on. I mean, some of that article I didn't read, but some of it goes through the kind of stories they want to tell. It's almost all of it true story military engagements.
Wow.
I'm like, I mean, I hate to say it, but today that's a political statement. It didn't used to be in the 80s. That is true. In the 80s, a lot of military engagements or military stuff, like Rambo, right? Rambo was like, he became a right-wing hero, but he wasn't initially. He was like representing the veterans, but he was also representing people who didn't like the politics being injected into the military to send men out to fight and die for without a good cause, without a good reason. That was really what Rambo was about. The fact that people who were natural fighters like him, who cared about the people, who cared about their communities, were being misused and abused, not just by the enemy, but by their own government. That's a nuanced story. That's why Rambo became an important story to tell at that time because the country was suffering through Vietnam. And Vietnam had clear left, right wing sides. And Rambo went right in the middle. And people didn't believe you could do that. People were like, well, this is a very unnuanced political problem we have here. We have pro Vietnam and anti Vietnam. How are we going to find? We'll leave it to an artist, an actual artist, to do that. Because why? Because they actually care about their characters. Their characters have to resemble real life people.
Mm.
And real life people actually went through Vietnam and could tell their stories. And guess what? Their stories were nuanced. They weren't like rah rah one side or rah rah the other side. They had
Mm.
an interesting story to tell. And that worked its way into films like Rambo. And that's why Rambo became a good film franchise and became successful,
Yeah.
because not just right wingers, but left wingers could enjoy it too. And we could all get together and be like, yeah, life is not fair, either for your side or for my side.
Mhm.
And we can kind of agree on somebody like Rambo when we maybe can't agree on which person to vote for at the end of the day. So that's, when you actually involve a real artist, sure that you might be annoyed at them at first because they aren't towing the party line that you wish they would do. And man, the stakes are so high. How could you not just do what we tell you to do? It's like you're an artist or something. Yeah, exactly. Story is more important to us, you know? And so that's why you're going to get a powerful story. And guess what? If you happen to be on the side of truth, you're going to be on the side of Rambo, aren't you? But if your politics is not on the side of truth, maybe we shouldn't be following your side anyway. You ever think of that? One of the political sides are going to be closer to the truth. That's why we like nuanced stories. They actually resemble truth more. They're more authentic. They're not a bunch of fakey, propagandistic, rah-rah stuff, you know? So I would challenge uh, conservative investors to do better. Like, you don't have to come out and be inauthentic and say, we want, let's see, what there was a quote he gave. What was it? Let me see this quote. It's at the top. He said, movies have become, the American brand is broken. Hollywood is AWOL. Movies have become more ideological, more cautious, less entertaining. So what did they provide us with as examples? Sure, they might be entertaining. I don't know. That depends on the execution of the film. They actually seem more cautious and ideological, don't they? Doesn't it actually seem cautious to be like, oh, I got to be careful with my messaging here. I don't want to make an ambiguous, nuanced message you have to think about. It has to be rah rah America, right? Because I have to be more cautious and be careful that my messaging is not ambiguous. So that they're actually wanting to make more cautious stuff. And they actually might be making more ideological stuff, you know, than even Hollywood, because their message doesn't even seem nuanced. So I find that really kind of funny that they come right out of the gate and say, we don't want to make this stuff. Let's make this stuff. The same same stuff we just said we don't want to make.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the initial desire, and I've actually spoken on this. I like the initial desire to make something like Rambo, but actually make it like Rambo then, if you're going to say that, right? Or make it like Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry was also ambiguously right or left,
Mhm.
because the producers at the time that made Dirty Harry and Clint Eastwood were like, oh no, this is a left-wing picture. But guess what? The screenwriter revealed that they were inspired by an actual case of a left-wing murderer.
Mhm.
So Dirty Harry was a response to left-wing crime.
Wow.
So even though they're going to try to change the messaging after they made the film, the truth is it's a little more nuanced than that, isn't it? It's more against crime no matter what side of the aisle it's coming from, isn't it? So, and that's the message that came through from Dirty Harry. It wasn't about politics at that point. It was about, crime being bad in the 70s, and it was bad. But guess what? We also know the crime being bad was part of left-wing issues. And we know that. And the fact that they wouldn't punish left-wing terrorists for so many things that they did And just like how they barely will do that today. And if you do that, you make room for lawlessness to thrive in the country. And so, what do we say right-wing conservative politicians often are? They're often law and order candidates. That means they're supposed to go on the opposite side of the lawlessness of the left. But guess what? Most people want law and order to be maintained, because if it's not maintained, then they have a bad quality of life. And that's just obvious as it comes to day-to-day living. Eventually, the reality just starts to seep through. And if your city is crime-ridden city, eventually, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, you want that city to get cleaned up eventually. So, you can always kind of hedge your bets and say, well, it wasn't because of me that crime got bad. But guess what? Now you're going to need a law and order candidate. And whatever side of the aisle that they come from, you kind of don't care. You just want the streets cleaned up. That's kind of what Dirty Harry represented. And we have that similar problem today. So if we actually had a Dirty Harry like hero again, it would do well. The film would do well, you know? And so like Rambo could be a military man that came back from Afghanistan instead of Vietnam, right? And so then the commentary could be about Afghanistan, whether it was good or bad. And, you know, if you make them a nuanced character that's not clearly left or right wing, now you've got a bunch of audience members who like this story instead of making it clearly like unambiguously one side or the other. So guys, we can do better. We actually can champion the truth, which is closer to what culture is about than championing politics. And if you do what Andrew Breitbart said, which was, right, culture is upstream of politics, then we'll do well. But if we misunderstand and ignore his message, like we apparently have been doing, no, it's going to continue to get worse. So, and I don't think these guys should get even $10 if they continue to just champion political messaging, you know?
Mhm.
So, but if they actually do want to make a good Rambo or a good Dirty Harry, I'm all for it, man. That's what we need, you know? So the other story I wanted to talk about was basically what we've been doing all week. And it's really exciting, but it's also taken so much of our energy. But we are working on moving to a place where we'll have a studio. And so I've talked to a few of my friends, whether they're filmmaker friends or what have you, about our interest to make a studio. This is not like a film studio, which uh, for filmmaking, because film studios for filmmaking are often humongous warehouse type deals, or like a volume with like LED. I mean, these are millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment we're talking for a film studio. No, I'm talking about more like a interview space, whether it's for like a YouTube channel or whether it's for a studio space for having a guest over to do interviews. That's kind of what I'm talking about. So, talking head, interview, green screen, stuff like this. But in addition, and this is one of the things we haven't brought up yet, but in addition, we're working on having a bookstore and a coffee house as well. This is a lot. This seems like a lot, but the truth is, it's not, it doesn't add that much more to what we're already doing. What we do here, for example, would be streamlined and be much quicker to set up if all we did was have a larger space that was used commercially. So if for example we had a nice um, bookstore, right, that has like a little, like a little decorative fireplace and has books and things like this, and better lighting. A lot of this stuff, it's already there. It'll be easy to set up cameras and lights, right? And shoot there in like 2 hours. And then you could put that up. So the efficiency scale just goes off the charts when you have a dedicated space for things like interviews and things like this. When, this is in my own private space. Like this is not commercial space I've got. So we've worked towards getting a studio space, both for cultural warfare as well as for Media Moses. And we've realized that we also need day-to-day commercial space for making money on the day-to-day. And so that, after doing research on the different kinds of commercial space I can acquire for fairly cheap, you've always got the more expensive warehousey type space. And then you have to think about zoning and stuff, what's allowed in that space. So the kind of space I've been looking for is the double-decker commercial and residential upstairs. Purchasing these older buildings that have brick facades, and so they're already attractive to shoot in. I only have to purchase one property. I can live upstairs with my family. Downstairs, I can do the day-to-day coffee house bookstore and just do inventory and make sure everything's clean. These are some of the only concerns really that you have besides just staying open and continuing to operate. And then doing these kinds of additional things on the side are not that difficult. So we've been trying to find the right property, and there was some property that I found that was really nice in Missouri. I went to college in Missouri, so I'm familiar with the state to some degree. I enjoy the weather there. It's not too hot or cold, right? The the property is probably like $50,000 cheaper there than most other states. So that provides us with the additional funds to fill in the spaces for the coffee house and the bookstore. And so we've been researching like the kind of bookstores you want to do. Obviously, these are things we're already incredibly fanatical about. Like we're already like book fanatics. We want to do a lot of spec fic, Christian spec fic particularly, and classic literature, stuff like this. If we can even grow like a homeschool community there, that'd be great. So the homeschool families can come in and just, see the latest curriculum or actually literally teach their family in the coffee house. That would be a lot of fun. So, we looked for some property, and last week I was traveling a lot, as you know. Well, I was in Missouri last week. This week I was up in Michigan for Realm Makers. So last week I visited a property and set up everything, like got inspectors. I had to get the two basic inspectors, the termite and the general inspector. Saw some problem areas that could be an issue. So I told the inspector, look for those problem areas. We just got the results. We literally signed the contract, but it was contingent upon the inspection results going well. And yesterday we got it back and it did not go well.
Not good inspection results.
No, not good inspection results. And it's probably why the property was so cheap. I'll be frank.
Yeah. But
Beautiful property.
yeah, beautiful old building,
Oh,
very small town.
ideal property. Very small town though, and there's good and bad about that. Like we love the small communities. We love the fact we actually like the fact that everybody could know everybody. I actually like that. It cautions you to treat everybody well. Right? You have to treat everybody well. But the bad thing is that there might not be tons of business. So just the people who come are going to come. They might not come once a week, who knows? But at least if we're in a larger community, a little bit larger, it doesn't have to be as large as where we live in now, right? But it's just got to be a little bit larger, but still feel like a real community, a community that can get behind something like this, where you are kind of a bigger fish in a smaller pond. That can really feel good because if there's no other competing book/coffee shops, you've got those customers now.
Yeah.
And as long as you treat people well, they'll come back. So, I think that's kind of the trick is you got to find that little niche and then just treat people well.
Yeah.
Then they'll keep coming back. This makes room for us to do a lot more. Also to focus a little more on my literary journeys and get to know people as it comes to the difficult parts of storytelling. Really, the writing and all the descriptions that are required to write a novel instead of a script. Because I was kind of brought up writing scripts more. But often what novel writers get wrong is the stuff script writers get right, which is structure. Structure is really important. These are things I can then focus a little bit more on, hopefully. And as well as just being part of a more tight-knit community. I really care about that. But as stated, this particular property fell through. But there's other states we're also open to. Something like that, though. The upstairs residential, the downstairs commercial. Hopefully it'll make a lot of things easier, whether it's interviews, whether it's making coffee for people, which I love. I'm going to focus on just a pour over coffee. And I just think that's easier. It's tastier. It's just so much better,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm going to focus on Christian spec fic and classics.
Yeah.
I think that stuff's the best.
Yeah.
George MacDonald in there. Good stuff. Which brings us to our main topic, the 2025 Realm Makers Expo. I hope you enjoyed your week this week. Our Media Moses articles can be found on MediaMoses.com. Paid and unpaid subscriptions are available. Next up, our main topic over on Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft. Oh, that's me. See you in a minute as we transition over to that channel.